Segment. This one's short. We're going to get into George Soros and who he represents. But continuing, Webster, there's a lot of other connections from Assange to, of course, the people that are all around Soros and Soros himself. But I've noticed that first they claim these sexual deviancies with women. And it's funny that before that even came out, you were talking about the sex cult connection, which I've seen blurbed in the media. So that's not just coming from you. And then now they're chasing him. But that seems to add to the gravitas that what Assange is saying is real and accurate and valuable and some type of big catch for us. Now we know that there for 3 days has been this Interpol warrant out for him, but now the British won't enforce it, so the plot thickens.
Yeah, look, you know, if the CIA wanted to shut him up, what could they do? What have they done repeatedly? They would organize a rendition. They did it with the imam on the streets of Milan. They've done it with dozens of people in all NATO countries of Europe. You get a CIA team. They go in there. They grab you. They beat you over the head. They drug you. They take you to the nearest NATO base. They put you on a plane. You wake up in Egypt or Morocco or Poland or Romania or one of the black sites. This is still being done under Obama.
Or in a shipping container that internationally is a trade zone of one of those countries.
Absolutely.
You might be here at the Austin airport, but it's Romanian territory.
The other thing they do is, of course, they can arrange an automobile accident. They can arrange some kind of a heart attack. They can arrange a health emergency. If they had really been interested in shutting him up, there would have been many ways to do it. And indeed, one of the things that stands out, one of the flaws of the whole design of the operation so far is the impotence and the fecklessness of everything they try to do to stop him. They say, please stop, or we might prosecute you. Well, this is ridiculous, right? They could round him up and his people. You can go to Iceland, right? Reykjavik is a very small place.
And now they're trying to pass legislation to restrict free speech in the U.S.
Yeah, that's really important because this guy, see, all the left liberals swoon for this character, right? Left liberals never had very many heroes. Their hero was Obama. Obama betrayed them now. That's clear to everybody. Now they're looking for a new hero. So along comes Assange, the zombie from MK Ultra, and sure enough, all the left liberals are they're lining up to support him. Oh, no, he shouldn't be indicted or anything.
Now, Tarpley, are you sure he's bad? I mean, couldn't he just be a useful idiot they're using?
No, I don't think so. First of all, because of the pattern we've seen so far, everything he puts out is more or less according to the CIA wish list. And now, as you say, we have this interview in Forbes magazine, right? Forbes magazine, which is, this is the reactionaries of finance capital. And he says, we have a new document dump coming up, which will not be military. It's a mega leak, and it's going to be about a U.S. bank, one that still exists. Is it the biggest U.S. bank? No comment, and it's going to happen early next year.
And we already had Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan come in and gobble up Bear Stearns and others.
Yeah, well, I think the target for this, it sounds like the Forbes guy is trying to say, is it the Bank of America or is it Citibank? Bank of America is probably the biggest right now. You take a look at their stock chart, it's just down, 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 down. Bank of America is in very parlous straits, right? Very, very unstable. Maybe this is the way to push them into a panic. And, of course, you know that Soros and all of his hedge funds will have shorted the Bank of America stocks and bonds and everything else. They will have basically made a whole series of bets on credit default swaps and derivatives and other things to profit big time for what Assange is going to do. The other thing I think we have to remember is we were told what this would be. Cass Sunstein wrote that essay saying we have to provide for the cognitive disruption of the 9/11 truth movement.
Webster, leave it there. I don't want you to be interrupted on this. Recap that when we come back. And then we know Cass Sunstein's hooked in with Soros. I want you to break down their geopolitical aim here. Then I want to get into what's happening with the economy and the trillions, not just being given to zombie banks, but to select corporations. We'll be right back with Webster Tarpley. I'm Alex Jones. 5th day of December 2010. Hard to believe this year is very long in the tooth, my friends. Soon it'll be 2011, 2012, and beyond. Now, Webster, I remember Cass Sunstein 2 years ago, now White House regulation czar, openly saying we will infiltrate the alternative media, we will infiltrate the anti-man-made global warming groups, we will infiltrate 9/11 Truth, and we will wreak havoc, put out all sorts of disinfo to discredit them. Then we'll move to start outlawing the media and free speech. We'll use leaks. I mean, they're telling us what they'll do. We know he's tied into George Soros. So now, as you predicted more than 6 months ago in repeated interviews, and so did Madsen and others, now that he's built up his street cred, Assange says he's going to go after certain brokerage firms and banks. George Soros has been convicted in 2 countries of this. Let's continue along that line.
Well, I think we have to take this Cass Sunstein essay from some years back quite seriously, because I would regard WikiLeaks and Assange as the fulfillment of what Cass Sunstein said he wanted. In other words, it's the product of that project that we now see. Cass Sunstein said, look, we have these conspiracy theorists running around, and we've got to do something about this. We've got to provide for the cognitive disruption of these people. We've got to break them up using intellectual means, using different ideas. And what do you think that would look like? The cognitive disruption is not going to come from a group that comes on the scene and says, we're the Bush-Cheney neocon fan club, and we're here to tell you what you're doing is wrong.
Well, that's what he said. Cass Sunstein, as you know, in that Harvard paper and others, said the mainstream media has no credibility. We've got to pose as anti-establishment to sell this stuff.
Right, and therefore, look at Assange. What does Assange say about 9/11? Assange says that he is irritated. He's fed up with these people who talk about 9/11 because they're ignoring the real big conspiracies that Assange reveals, and they're going after a conspiracy that he says has no basis. Now, again, I wouldn't call it the conspiracy-based community. I would call it the reality-based community. You don't go looking for conspiracies. You go looking for the truth, and much of the time, unfortunately, you do find conspiracies. That's the way social reality is. So out of faithfulness to truth, we have to do this. But what Sunstein is saying, and what I think Assange is actually doing, is that you've got to go in there and break them up. And how would you break them up? I mean, I've seen this happen, for example, in a place like Iceland. I was in Iceland last September, October, and there was a live social movement that wanted to declare a debt moratorium. They wanted to say to the British and the Dutch government that the debts of the zombie banks were going to be canceled and that you couldn't load $10 or $15 billion of debt on a population of 300 to 400,000 people in Iceland. In blows Assange as soon as I'm out of the country, and he says, look, guys, forget about this debt moratorium stuff. Forget about fighting finance capital. Let's set up a really important base of leakers and pornographers and gamers, and we'll make Iceland into the center of all kinds of wonderful things on the internet, right? And we'll be immune to the laws of all these other countries. And indeed, that's where this stuff takes off.
And by the way, it did come out in Iceland that almost all the debt was not owed by the people. It was the very banks that owed the money.
Yeah, it was all owed by the banks, and it was not even owed. I mean, this was just
same thing in Ireland now.
Yeah, it's the same. It's exactly the same model. So the thing with Soros is, you look at WikiLeaks. It came into existence in 2007, as I recall, and the first time it was mentioned is, I believe, in a Washington Post op-ed by Cass Sunstein, who says we have these wonderful positive leaking operations. So in one way or the other, the Washington Post is the debut of WikiLeaks. And then as we go on...
And, of course, it turns out Woodward was naval intelligence connected directly, and that whole thing was staged.
No doubt about that. But just on this now, originally, the board of WikiLeaks was stacked with people who were Chinese dissidents, right? We don't need to go through the names because they're not well known. When you're dealing with the world of dissidents from the used to be communist bloc, but now sort of the enemy countries, right? China, Russia, these places. Then you have to look, what is the role of Soros in this? Because the Soros foundations have been extremely active. For example, in Russia, after the communist regime ended, the Soviet Union ended, the Soros foundations went in there and they bought up all kinds of intellectuals with very small scholarships, very small stipends that nevertheless established a tie of loyalty of these people towards Soros. And if you look at the people who finance the various Chinese dissident operations in the West, you see that the Soros group of foundations, let's say, looms rather large. And again, the political director of all this is Morton Halperin, who is left over from the Pentagon Papers of the late 60s and early 70s. So he knows how you do these sorts of things. So I would say what Cass Sunstein was demanding is exactly what Assange is doing. And people have to realize this is especially a matter of left-wing prejudice. Leftists are suckers. They're easy marks for this kind of a guy. And, of course, the indispensable ingredient is that he's persecuted, right? We're told that he's on the run. He's seeking asylum in Switzerland. But nevertheless, he still has the New York Times, the Guardian in Britain, which is the left wing of MI6.
They're his mouthpieces.
Yeah, they all work for him. Now, Alex, you and I know very well, if you're coming up with something that the U.S. financier establishment wants to suppress, this is not how they treat you.
Hey, Jesse Ventura's TV show on FEMA camps got banned, and I'm not at liberty to get into all of it, but it's just not going to air now. And it's the government. I mean, I've been attacked in a parking lot. I've had all sorts of dirty tricks, and I'm not, releasing anything like this stuff. I mean, no. I mean, they go after you. They demonize you. I'm attacked by Soros publications now every day. Huffington Post, Media Matters, all financed by him.
Yeah. So if those of us who have some idea, some personal experience of what kind of a treatment you get from these mainstream media, because that's what this is, and El País of Spain, let's not forget them. So there's an international media consortium that's backing Assange. This does not happen if Wall Street and the City of London are hostile to what you're doing. It means that Assange is something that they want to promote. And at this point, I think it's an open and shut case, right? Look at his background. He's a zombie from MK Ultra. Look at his track record of the stuff that he puts out. It becomes more and more dubious and rotten, more and more dictated by the CIA hit list. And now he's going to get into this stuff with the banks. Remember, London always likes the idea of shifting the crisis to New York, right? They did this in 1971. They did it again in 2008.
You've been predicting that after Greece and Ireland, you said it'd probably come here.
Or it could go to Britain. See, that's the question. It could go to Britain, and here we have Assange essentially saying, I'm going to attack a U.S. bank. How about attacking a British bank, right? You want some street creds, attack a British bank.
Well, notice where he's run, Britain.
Yeah. Well, of course, Australia is British imperial territory, whatever the technicalities of the government are, right? The Queen overthrew Gal Whitlam, the Prime Minister of Australia, in 1975 when he did something she didn't like.
Same thing happened a year and a half ago. She suspended the Parliament in Canada.
In Canada, and they've done that more than once. So the independence of these British Empire echelon countries is largely a fiction. They're controlled from the City of London by the financiers, and the Queen does what the financier consensus is. So I think that more or less accounts for Assange, and I think the thing that makes this so lamentable is that the left liberals, the leftists, have learned nothing. They learned nothing from the Pentagon Papers, nothing from Watergate, and here they are, they're going into it again. And I think that what you were saying before is very relevant. The goal of this stuff is to shut down all sorts of websites like the ones we have, yours in particular, that actually tell you the truth about something or give you an alternative view.
Well, stay there. Let's cover that. Let's cover that when we come back and then get into the economy and all these trillions of our taxpayer money being given to globalist corporations and the controlled media. Stay with us, Webster.